The Gameboy Micro. This iconic console doesn't need any introductions. It was the last of a long generation of classic Game Boy consoles. Released in 2005 and being the 6th generation of Game Boy, this console was designed to be portable. It featured a 2-inch backlit screen, rechargeable battery, and aluminium shell. However, unlike its predecessors, this console wasn't backwards compatible and could only play Game Boy Advance games. With its high introductory price and competition with other handheld consoles, the Game Boy Micro failed to meet sales expectations and was ceased in 2007. Only a few limited aftermarket accessories were ever created for this console. So as usual, we decided to take matters into our own hands. Several years ago, we purchased this Nyko worm cam for the Game Boy Advance. This poorly created, third-party aftermarket digital camera for the Game Boy Advance simply plugs into the cartridge slot of your pre-existing console and functions via the communication port. The worm cam is capable of taking digital and video footage at a small 182x142 resolution. Features an adjustable lens, spy camera mode, as well as image editing software. Video and still footage can be uploaded to your PC via mini USB. So with limited aftermarket accessories created for the Game Boy Micro, we had an idea. Theoretically, the Game Boy Advance and Game Boy Micro should work off the same software. So we set off scouring the internet for some pin-out diagrams for the communication ports and decided to create a male Game Boy Micro to female Game Boy Advance communication cable. The first step involves stripping down an aftermarket charging cable for the Game Boy Micro console. This involves removing the port and conduit around the original cable. With some patience and a sharp Stanley knife, the conduit and shielding can be easily removed. After sourcing a faulty aftermarket communication link cable off the internet, we decided to desolder the Game Boy Advance female communication port from the cable. As the male end of the Game Boy Micro link port uses fine soldering points, we opted for aftermarket pre-soldered wiring. For this project, and as per the schematic attached, pins 1 and 8 of the male Game Boy Micro port are not necessary. We do recommend using a fine-tipped adjustable solder iron for this project, as the solder points on the Game Boy Micro end are quite difficult. Now, as per the Game Boy Color pin-out schematic attached, now it's just a matter of soldering the corresponding lines from the Game Boy Micro port across to the Game Boy Color port. As this was an experiment, we opted not to use conduit over the wiring. Enjoying this video? Now's the perfect time to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's always nerve-wracking testing an experiment for the first time. And in this instance, we're a little bit nervous due to the minute soldering points on the end of the Game Boy Micro communication port. However, we were fairly confident with the theoretical aspect of our project. Now all that's left to do is to plug it in and test it. And as initially suspected, The Game Boy Micro and Game Boy Advance must run off similar software programmed on their ROM chip. The Game Boy Micro successfully booted up the worm cam and loaded the initial software sequence. The menu functionality appears to be as normal as does the photo sequence. So it proves, with a little bit of ingenuity, some patience, and a few dollars of parts, it's possible to connect aftermarket peripherals specifically made for the Game Boy Advance with the Game Boy Micro console.